Oh, hello everyone. I hope you are having a fantastic. Now, Tracy, I know you're on the other side of the pond. So for you, it's like morning. But for us here in the States, it is late. I am on Pacific time, which makes it 11:30 p.m. And I'm here doing this late night space because snafus. Wanted to do it earlier tonight. I actually wanted to do it a couple hours ago, which would have been, oh my goodness, 4:30 a.m. Tracy's time, which would have been much too early for me. But had a few snafus, had a few complications. But we're gonna do this. We're gonna knock this out. There's been some interesting updates in the UFO world. Tomorrow night, I will be doing a space with Mr. Flak Magnet where we are going to continue our investigation into the Epstein files. And I believe what we're covering tomorrow night has to do with the connection to Russia and other possible intelligence connections. So we're kind of working that out now. So if you have been watching our stuff on the Epstein case, don't miss tomorrow night. Should be a good one. Friday night. Black's usually in an extra special go get a mood on Friday night. So should be a good time. But tonight, what we're talking about specifically are a few things. So Eric Davis and Eric Weinstein, interesting 1-2 punch there. If you missed it, they were recently on American Alchemy. And I mean, you could not have two guys further apart from each other on the spectrum than Eric Weinstein and Eric Davis. You have Eric Davis, who kind of works in this world of, well, I'm only going to apply known science, but it's all this crazy UFO, UAP stuff, propulsion and gravitation that we're trying to figure out. And then you have Eric Weinstein on the other side, who doesn't have access to any of the UFO, UAP stuff, saying general relativity is not really going to work for stuff like that because we can't do stuff like that with general relativity, obviously, which is why we're so befuddled by these things we see in the sky if they are truly craft. We're also going to talk about this 2027 rumor. Where did this come from? Where did it start? Why is it sticking? And they, if you've noticed, have already started to move the goalpost a bit. And we're going to get into that a little bit. And then, again, we're going to go back. This conversation that Eric has with Eric, they speak a little bit about the legacy program, in particular Glenn Gaffney, but we're going to talk about him and some other scientists that may have potentially been involved in this program. So if it's your first time here, don't forget, like and subscribe. I really appreciate that. That kind of stuff helps out the algorithm, if you will, so we can get more folks on the same wavelength hanging out. We love it if you comment, questions, concerns, theories. We love it all here. So let's start out with this kind of lighthearted clip. This was Kurt Russell the other day on a talk show. And if you don't remember, Kurt Russell, I know, like, the late 90s, early 2000s seems like a century ago, but during that Phoenix Lights incident, Kurt Russell was actually flying into Phoenix and called in the strange sighting. And I'm sure he's told this story a few times. However, this was just last week. And this was Kurt talking about flying in to Phoenix and seeing the Phoenix Lights. I think he was with his son. Once this cheesy music stops, I'm sorry, y'all. I can't help myself.
No, but you were a pilot for many years. You witnessed something which has kind of gone down in the records as an unexplained phenomena.
It was the most witnessed. This is a part of the most witnessed UFO, the one in Phoenix.
Yes.
So 20,000 people saw this. But anyway, I'm taking my son Oliver. He's going to go see some friends, and so I'm flying from Los Angeles to, I think it was Sky Harbor, and we go into the Sky Harbor, doing the approach. And Oliver finally says to me, "Pa, are we okay here? What are those lights?" And I for the first time said, "Yeah." He said, I said, "I don't know what those lights are." So I'm looking at one light, two lights, two other lights, perfect line. And I said, "No, I don't know exactly what that is." And he said, "Well, are we okay here?" And I said, So I'm talking to the tower, and I said, "Are you guys painting anything above the airport? Are you looking at any radar?" And no, we're not showing anything. They're unidentified, they're flying, and I don't know what those objects are. Mm-hmm. About 6 years later, I come home one night, and Goldie's watching TV.
Like, why is that a thing? If you've spoken with people that have had experiences, or maybe you've had an experience and that's why you find yourself up late watching strange YouTube videos like this. The people you're around at that time, maybe they don't remember certain stuff. I know with my experience, I was very young. I saw a triangle craft. I was with a family member. Immediately afterwards, we walked away, and neither one of us really thought about it, talked about it. I don't remember a discussion being had. I don't remember us freaking out about how our minds were blown at this weird triangle craft that was like gravitating, like floating, and turned this 90-degree angle and took off. There was no like, "Oh my God, what was that?" It was just, weird. And then went on with our evening. And then several years later, asking that family member, like, "Hey, do you remember this?" And they're like, "Nope, don't remember it." So, and it seems like a lot of people you talk to that have these experiences go through the same thing. Either it sticks with them and nobody else, or they just completely forget it. So I don't know if it's intentional. Maybe it's something in the technology. Maybe it's something with ontological shock and how our brains work. But it's very interesting that we forget these really weird, crazy things. We forget them. So I think I apologize, y'all, if I'm sounding a little quiet. Made some adjustments on the mic, and I've just been having, you know what it is? Ever since I did this episode on evil books, I've been having technical issues left and right. I am never covering evil books again. Just kidding. All right. So I'm kind of not. So, but I will cover it again because I don't care. All right. So this is Joe Rogan, George Knapp, Jeremy Corbell on Joe Rogan talking about being potentially duped by this whole UFO thing, right? By all of it being a psyop. And then we're going to get a little into this 2027 thing because it's weird. And I think we need to understand where this came from, what it's about, and why I think you don't need to be worried about anything. So if you're concerned, if you're worried about 2027, or they've even moved the goalpost at this point to 2036, I'm here to tell you, don't worry. The only things we need to worry about are ourselves and not blowing each other up. That's what's most important right now. Okay, so here's Knapp and Corbell on Rogan, and then we're going to start talking about this 2027 thing.
Are you apprehensive at all that some of the stuff that they're releasing is bullshit?
Of course.
Of
wait,
course.
Wait, who's releasing?
I mean, when you see these, the Pentagon's talking about it, when, you know, intelligent officials, you ever wonder whether or not it's disinformation?
I mean, we have a history of disinformation and misinformation put out to the public and to Congress by the intelligence community.
Your government now wants you to know one truth, and that truth is that UFOs are real. They've already done told you. Sometimes when you want somebody to know a truth, it's so you can set them up to believe a lie. And that's coming. I have zero doubt that lie is coming. What is the lie? Specifically, you want me to say it right now? For real? Real? On camera. To be put in the show? Yes. Okay. Problem with that. If we tell the lie before it's told, they can adapt. That wouldn't be wise. I'll tell you privately, but I would really think about if you want to put this in your show. For real. So UFOs are real, and they've been here a long time, and that's the truth. But the lie is coming, that there is a craft slowly making its way to us here on Earth. And that is the lie they're going to want you to believe. You even got a date. People have been whispering a date. I sent you 2 texts today with a year. Not from me. Nope.
So there it is, 2027. This was on the, I always thought it was a Hulu thing. Maybe I just watched it on Hulu. But this is a TMZ UFO Revolution was the name of the show. I thought it was funny, and I had to point out, obviously, the fact that he says, you know, putting this out may cause more harm than do good. So I think we should consider that before we put this on tape. And literally within like a minute, they're like, okay, sure. Yeah, we're worried about it. Let's go ahead and record it. And he's like, and he basically tells them that he's hearing this date, 2027, that he saw a CIA document several years ago that referenced using some kind of impending attack, impending doom, something that's going to happen, interaction, the aliens landing on the White House lawn, something like that is going to happen in 2027. And he's not the only one to talk about impending future stuff. And in particular, there's one individual who has not shied away from straight out giving that 2027 date during any interview. And you're probably familiar with who it is.
Well, she said,
now, it's not this individual. This is Chris Bledsoe, who says, what is it, next month? And is going to be this awakening. He said there was going to be missiles firing at Iran, back and forth between Iran and Israel. It's exactly what's happening right now. Of course, there's always missiles firing back and forth between Israel and Iran. So I don't know. I'll give him like a quarter of a point for that one. Says that these, whatever this is, in fact, we're just going to let him word it here.
And I had no idea what it meant. Still don't. Other than she said that when the star of Regulus, which is a blue star, when it appears red on the horizon at the dawn before the sun comes up, and the gaze of the Sphinx, in other words, I saw it in a vision, the whole thing. You can see the Sphinx facing east, and this thing's just cresting the top. She said when that happens, that will be a sign that ushers in a new knowledge for humanity.
I do know that there is something.
Okay, now, from what I understand, Chris Bledsoe has tickets to go to Egypt, but after the event takes place, so I'm not sure. I don't know. I can't make sense of half the stuff some of these folks do. Now, this gentleman here, John Ramirez, has been banging the 2027 drum pretty much since he's had a drum. And also, like, not been concerned about worrying people. It sounds more like he's trying to worry people if you really listen to what he says.
Flying that is unacknowledged. I've never been read into that program. I know it exists, and here's why. Because I know the customer for this program. The customer is, again, NGA, National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. And so this intelligence agency, of course, is concerned with imagery intelligence, optically and electro-optically. So whatever is flying that is unacknowledged, whatever shape it might be, is collecting from an aerospace altitude those types of data. And that's all I know, and that's all I can say. I personally have been never cleared or do not have any knowledge of a craft, but I don't discount anything. What's being channeled, what's being experienced, it's all labeled under the phenomenon, including, as we learned, the more disturbing aspects of the phenomenon, which appear to be malevolent. It is my personal belief that there are residents, visitors, and strangers. Residents being, I believe, entities that have been here long before humanity appeared, and in fact, may have had some hand in making us who we are today.
The dialogue we're having now in this country, even with the recent legislation that passed through the legislature and is on its way up to the president's desk, even with that, we're kind of preparing the U.S. population, at least, and by extension, the world population, into that reality that there is a presence here, and that we need to explain this presence. Because if they show up and we continue to do what we did before previous decades, and they show up, there will be mass panic. But if you understand that these are real, and we have 5 years from 2022, or maybe now 4 years, if they come in 2027, for the U.S. government to prepare the people about what is up there.
You're not the only one that said this. 2027 keeps coming up, and you just said later this year or in 2027. Why is 2027 the year that everybody keeps throwing around? Because it doesn't seem random to me. Well, everybody seems to be saying 2027.
Yeah, I've heard 2027. I also heard 2036.
Okay, ground stop to 0630 for how long?
So Lou Elizondo there officially moves the goalpost, says he's heard 2027, but he's also heard 2036, which is interesting. Because that way, if nothing crazy happens in 2026, I can say, oh, it's probably 2036, right? I think that's what I meant. The beauty of the internet, folks, is that there's so many brilliant people that use it and contribute to it. I had started to put together this list myself. Let's figure out where this 2027 thing came from. And if there's any legitimacy to the claim. What's wonderful is it looks like Maniac of Copy in the aliens space here in Reddit/aliens, put together a list for us. 13 sources for the 2027 Alien Doomsday event. And let me do this in case you would like to have this later as a reference. I'm going to put the link in the live chat. So if you would like to reference the paper yourself, bookmark it for later, whatever, you can have it. But let's go through this list. So number 1, Bob Lazar, his 1991 tape, the one where he pulls up in like a Corvette or something. The first to speak about a return of NHIs was Bob Lazar in his 1991 tape. The documents he saw spoke about a battle between NHIs in 1979, where they stopped cooperation with the U.S. government, but they will be back on the year 1623 in some reference frame. And if you track down that tape, or they provide the YouTube link here to watch it, even the minute stamp, you can go to 3809 in that tape. Teller, father of the hydrogen bomb, was asked about Bob Lazar and said that he will not answer the question. So that is the first reference of some NHI returning at some point. Now, 1623 obviously doesn't make sense. So there has to be some explanation for that. Number 2, Jim Goodall, Area 51 sources. 1999, Jim Goodall, aviation journalist, said that 2 militaries from Area 51 told him that UFOs exist, but they will not be able to tell him more until 2025. Okay, well, now we're inching closer here to this date. Number 3, Jason Sands, spy phone. Jason said that he was working in Intel and monitoring phone calls out from Nellis. Some guy at the base got some new information from an NHI apparently, then called some other official and told him that they need to return the ships and, quote, prisoners, or the NHI will be back to kill them. And not a specific reference to 2027, but we're on number 3 here, and we've already had 2 references to NHI coming back in a future date to cause harm. Number 4, the Forgotten Language website. So the mysterious website Forgotten Languages has a post from 2022 saying there will be an asteroid that will hit Earth on 2027, and that NHI are not interested by contact because our civilization will be destroyed soon. We know that in the year 27 there will be a collision with an asteroid. This is a quote from the post. There will be a collision with an asteroid. We know its dimensions, its orbit, and we have calculated the absolute certainty, the devastating effect that such a collision will have on terrestrial civilization. It will not be lethal, but it will only be the first of 3 collisions, the last of which will be a mass extinction event. According to the simulations, anything living dies, so why contact them? Number 5, Victor from Alien Interview, which has kind of been making the rounds again lately. Victor, who leaked the Alien Interview in 97, said on 2008 on his last testament that there will be no 20th, 2008 plus 20 is 2028, anniversary of this documentary, that the NHI tested us and we failed. And they will start a massive event on Earth because the legacy programs held the NHI captives and allowed them to die. He said that the 2012 data is wrong. He seemed to indicate a solar event. And again, there's another link to a YouTube video there. So Victor said, he said that aliens discorporated at a certain date, echoing the Bob Lazar talk about with the government, but a battle followed and they stopped cooperation. So we had this agreement at some point, and for whatever reason, it falls apart, and this is what happens. Things get dirty. He also said that Dick Cheney was aware of the programs and that Rumsfeld was also aware since 1974. But when they finally understood what the aliens were saying in the telepathic interviews, he became interested only in saving his soul, and that we should try to look where he was on March 23rd, 2008. That's how I read that. Jon Stewart investigated the alien interview tape, and we know this just kind of recently made the rounds, right? He was on Chris Ramsey and made a lot of noise. Did a lot of really hard investigative work. I'm not going to knock the man. He really tried. Investigated the alien interview tape and found the telepath interviewer named Brother Joseph, 91 years old, living in a monastery in Mount Equinox, Vermont. He said that they couldn't understand the NHI because they had a different understanding of time. That almost reminds me of that Arrival movie where time is, it's like circular to that species. There's no beginning and end. It's just kind of one continuous flow. It's very interesting. Number 6 on the list, CIA, John Ramirez. 2021, Ramirez of the CIA said that he was officially briefed that the word got out within the government that contact will happen on 2027. And that CIA was mad at him for leaking that this government is aware about the date. Elizondo also indirectly said 2027 because in 22, he told people in a hurry for disclosure, find a hobby for 5 years, then come back. And I'm sure a lot of us remember that. He also talked about building a bunker out at his ranch in Wyoming. Oh, and his actual location in Wyoming is apparently close to a military base. Number 7, we got Phil Schneider. In 1995, Schneider was a structural engineer. He said that he was at Dulce Base in 79 during the U.S. fight with aliens, and that the aliens will reduce 7 billion of the human population by 2029. Soon after this talk, he was found dead. Well, that's reassuring. And if you're all commenting, I'm sorry. I'm a little into reading this article, so I would check in as soon as we get through this. Number 8, Kelly Chase screens. So January 8th, 2025, Kelly Chase said that podcasters and YouTubers started receiving info from Intel guys saying that on 2027, there will be disclosure about a spaceship heading towards Earth at half the speed of light. She saw screens of the conversation or screenshots of that actual conversation. 16 September 24, the Scioactive podcast received the same intel from his contacts that James Webb saw the ship coming and that Congress was briefed about it. And that's the Scioactive podcast, a great, great podcast. Number 9, we just watched it, Corbell's lie. Corbell said on his podcast that the government will tell about the ship coming towards Earth on 2027, but that will be a lie. And there is a document from the 70s that initiated the lie, 1979 Dolce War Docs, possibly. With all these things under wrap and key, and then obfuscated and messed with before we can get our eyes on it. It's really hard to tell, right? Number 10, we just watched it, Chris Bledsoe's lady. Chris Bledsoe said that he was abducted in 2007. Then he remembered a 2008, during a 2008 hypnotic regression with MUFON and a Harvard professor. He saw the lady. He saw her again on 2013, and she told him that there will be a change on humanity's knowledge when the Regulus star will be in front of the Sphinx. He put it in writing, gave it to NASA handler Tim Taylor, who gave it to 2 Air Force generals. Then his contacts at the government did a simulation and found the date of the event to be 5 April 2026, this coming Easter. Then they started using remote viewers to see the date. He also saw U.S. bombing Iran and Syria. She told him that they will come to stop man's suffering. Wow, that, you know, I have to sit with that one for a minute and think about everything going on in the Middle East right now. And look, you throw enough stuff at a wall, some of it's going to stick, right? That was kind of like the thing with Alex Jones. Like, you just keep spewing and spewing and spewing and spewing and spewing. Yeah, you're going to be right about a few things because you never stop throwing out these insane theories. So sure, every once in a while, one's going to be right because you plug out like 50 a minute or whatever crazy thing he does. So it's 100% possible that something happens on Easter. And it's also 100% possible that absolutely nothing happens. Friend of the show, Eric Hecker, can probably tell us a lot about neutrinos. The sun emits neutrinos, so monitoring their energy can be a good indicator for any upcoming solar event. In 2025, the KM3NET detector at the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea found the most energetic neutrino ever detected. 100 times more energetic than the previous record. Scientists are not sure of its origin. Death Star near Sun. Yes, that's what it reads. The Death Star sucking power from the sun in 2012 on the NASA website. Now, this sounds interesting, and just because of that, let's see if this link here works. Because if we get to see a Death Star mess with the sun, that's pretty cool. Looks like it's loading. And maybe not successfully. Okay, well, while that hopefully loads, we'll go on to 13. Reagan-Gorbachev talks. So this is a big one. I mean, in my research, when I go and look back at the history of UFO lore and the track record of who's been involved, when they were involved, the narrative, right? What was the narrative at the time that they were really trying to hammer home? And with Gorbachev and Reagan, it was really, if we had an enemy out there in space, all of a sudden, the colors of our flags and the color of our skin and all those things that drive us apart would pull us together. And it makes sense. If you were around the United States after 9/11, there was this period of time where we were just all American, man. It didn't matter like what you did. It didn't matter how you looked, what you dressed like. None of that mattered. It was, you were an American. We're in this shit together. We got each other's back. And if there was some giant alien ship headed here, not just to take over America, not just to take over Russia, not just to take over South Africa, but to take over the world, you would have to think and hope to God that we would put away our differences and work together for humanity's sake. This is something Gorbachev and Reagan talked about a lot. Why does it come up in the 2027 dates? Because again, it's referencing an interstellar or extraterrestrial entity that is going to attack us for some reason. And then in 2009, in spite of the fact that we have the Air Force, which controls the skies and space with NASA, Trump rolled out Space Force. And now we're finding out Space Force is integral in these attacks against Iran. So is Space Force about protecting us from some unknown interstellar traveler? Or is Space Force about controlling the electromagnetics above a city so you can manipulate rockets coming in and out of it? I wonder. So what they pose here is from the theories above, we can draw, or from all of the above, we can draw some theories. One, the aliens will be back on 2027 to destroy us using the sun or an asteroid as a weapon. The U.S. government is foolish to think that this is, I'm sorry, I can't read that, that its space weapons will defend against them. I'm so sorry. I don't know why I couldn't read that. Number two, the aliens will come on 2027 to save us from a solar or asteroid cataclysm. So on the one hand, we have them coming to destroy us in 2027. And on the other hand, we have them coming to save us on 2027. Three, the U.S. government is creating a mass psyop to convince everybody to accept a space weapons program. Oh man, I kind of want to do that old school thing where you go tss, like you lick your finger and tss, because that was fucking dead on, my friends. Just look up what's happening with these missiles in Iran and Israel and the impact that the Space Force is having, so much so that they brag about it even though they can't talk about it because it's classified. So yeah, it's much better the population think that is UFOs instead of the US government that has that kind of capability. 4, there will be no cataclysm, but the aliens will make contact on 2027 and government starts slow disclosure. And they propose that in all the above, NHIs are actively mapping Earth's defenses to neutralize them during their contact so that the superpowers won't shoot them down with nukes. Now, we're going to get into this UFO science a little bit with Eric Davis and Weinstein, and I think it's important that in this field we keep track of the gatekeepers. It's not real science if only like 5 to 10 people can touch it and know all the quote-unquote information. That is what we call bullshit, ladies and gentlemen. A study that is not reproducible and not observable is not a study. It's just that simple. And it's the same thing with this 2027 thing. And I went ahead and pulled up some numbers just to give some perspective. Okay? Between the years of 2000 and 2012, there were over 45 films and documentaries shot regarding the 2012 apocalypse Mayan prophecy, most of which completely misrepresented what the Mayan calendar and quote-unquote prophecy was. But be that as it may, in a 12-year period, we had over 45 films produced about the end of the world in 2012. One of them was called 2012. The end of the world and doom sells tickets. Please understand that, y'all. The last thing I'm going to do is tell you not to listen to your heart and not to follow your heart, but listen to your head too. I would replay the video of Chris Bledsoe failing his lie detector test about his interaction with the being, except the last time I did that, I got striked. Apparently, they don't want that out there. But you can go find it yourself. Just YouTube it. Chris Bledsoe failing lie detector. Seasoned lie detector analyst tells them, yeah, I think maybe he probably had some kind of interaction. I think he's being honest about that. Think the rest of it's bullshit. All the stuff about the lady and conversations with these beings and everything else, complete nonsense. Didn't pass. Passed the other stuff, didn't pass that. Plain as day, black and white. I know they're not foolproof. I know they're not admissible in court. But come on, y'all. Okay. We're going to jump back into this video here now. If you missed it, in El Paso, we used a directed energy weapon without clearing it with the state and shot down cartel drones outside of the El Paso airport and shut it down because of the lack of communication. This is unbelievable.
10 days. So the airport's totally closed?
Well, chaos overnight after the FAA announced the sudden shutdown of the El Paso International Airport's airspace for 10 days, sending pilots and passengers reeling to figure out what was happening. But then a sudden reversal. The shutdown rolled back, with the transportation secretary saying cartel drones caused that closure. All of that happening as El Paso's mayor says they were left in the dark.
About the sudden shutdown at an El Paso International Airport we first told you about yesterday morning as breaking news. Sources now say Customs and Border Patrol may have deployed new anti-drone laser technology without full coordination with the FAA. Officials say.
Well, things are back to normal at El Paso International Airport after an unexpected closure yesterday. It all stemmed from disagreements between the FAA and the Pentagon over testing anti-drone technology. I want to bring in CBS News defense correspondent Charlie D'Agata. Charlie, sources tell CBS News that this technology was a high-energy laser, which sounds very intimidating. What is this thing capable of, and what is it used for?
Right, as you said, a high-energy laser counter drone system. It's what the military calls LOCUST, which stands for Laser-Oriented Counter UAS. But so the Reuters news agency said that it was provided by AeroVironment. That's a defense.
Okay, that's a fucking laser gun, y'all. And that's fine. If we need to use those to take out these drones that are moving into our protected airspace, great. I don't have a problem with that. But you don't even let the FAA know that you're going to be shooting super high-powered lasers into their airspace to try to... And why are cartel drones worried about the El Paso airport? It's so strange. And I know about 2 months ago, we were watching one of the generals live there with Hegseth, down there at Southern Command, and they were talking about the directed energy weapons that they had deployed along the southern border. Meaning, like, you just made a 50-mile hike and you're almost there to the border, and then all of a sudden you feel this hot sting and you shit your pants because you just got hit with a DEW and we want you to turn around. Such is life in 2026, y'all. Yeah, that's a great point, Tracy. We had drones that were stolen. Pretty cool, right? Nice to know they're securing this military-grade equipment. So, my beef is not with the lasers to take out the drones. Fucking do it. I don't care if you need Dragonfire to take out the drones. They should not be swarming in our protected airspace. But come on, not notifying the pilots and the FAA? Causing so much confusion that flight tower operator had to tell the pilot they were shut down for 10 days. What the fuck? It's just a microcosm of some of the breakdowns we're having at government right now, y'all.
Defense contractor in Virginia responsible for a lot of the military's drone and counter drone equipment. So we've seen it ourselves. It can be mounted on vehicles or on pallets, and just like it sounds, it tracks drones. It sends directed energy, if you want to call it a laser, in order to take those drones out. So it's a short range weapon. It's been used rarely. In fact, I'm not exactly sure it's ever been used on U.S. soil, sort of in anger.
So what do you make of this pushback report on these interdimensionals and demonic pieces of this, where the Pentagon is saying we can't?
Okay, so this is credit to the Redacted podcast, which I love, by the way. Haven't had much communication or any with the host, but I do appreciate their work. We've both had Eric Hecker on. We both care very much about this DEW situation. And lately, I've been leaning more towards what Greer has had to say than the rest of these disclosure dipshits. I mean, he's had the same consistent message for 40 years. It hasn't wavered. It hasn't changed. The databases are still there. So, of all these people in these circles, to me, I'll probably listen a little bit more to what he has to say than most of them, although it's kind of repeat. Like, really, if you've listened to Greer once, you've kind of heard what the man has to say in his opinions on the thing. Vector of Knowledge, good day. Glad to see you, buddy. Glad to see you. We're happy to have you. We hope you're enjoying the show so far. So we kind of went over the 2027 debacle, and now we're getting into some other things. So I think you'll have a little bit of interest in this next segment of Eric Weinstein and Eric Davis on American Alchemy. It's very interesting interaction, to say the least. And obviously we don't have time to sit through the whole thing, but there's a couple of things I extracted from that interview I think are very interesting. So here's Stephen Greer's reaction. There's a lot going, and I don't know why, but there's a lot going around right now about this Collins elite that believes these craft are demonic, and any credence that you give it is only providing more power or whatever to these demons. Now, one thing that I have pointed out that I literally have heard nobody else really make a big deal about is that the entire story of the Collins elite coming out and saying these things are devils, read your Bible, that whole story came from one person. Guess who that one person is? Luis Elizondo. Check your records. Use your AI. You find me another source for where that information came from. You can't. That information came from Luis Elizondo and then was parroted by multiple people. And now, all of a sudden, it has credibility. Welcome to UFO reporting. There's no credibility in this story whatsoever. There's one source who has been a proven liar in the past. So if you want to listen to a proven liar tell you what the Pentagon generals think about UFOs, you go right ahead. But I think probably when it comes to that kind of stuff, Mr. Greer more than likely has a better understanding of these things.
We can't release that to the American people. Like, what would happen if that's released to us? That we would learn that there are interdimensionals and demonic forces? I think many of us already believe that and know that.
Well, the problem here is a confusion amongst the various phenomena, plural. And this has been a problem for decades, and it's deliberate. For example, there are interstellar extraterrestrial civilizations that in order to go from A to B through the universe are crossing through other dimensions. They do not originate from another dimension. There are also phenomena from other dimensions that are extra-dimensional or interdimensional. These are deliberately being conflated and confused to gaslight low information people in public life and in the media for its psychological warfare value. Well, it began playing out in the late 50s when the Psychological Review Board for the CIA concluded, and we have this document, that psychological warfare operations would be greatly benefited by exploiting the UFO issue. We have this document. It's on our archive, dpiarchive.com, where we have terabytes of data if people want to look at it.
Okay. So this is where we get a little into the Eric Davis, Eric Weinstein debate. Tracy here is saying when it comes to lie detectors, something people don't remember is that the family passed their test about what they experienced in the house for 1 month before they moved out. Not sure which, can't remember the name of the case. All good. All good. Part of the Warrens case. Okay. Yeah. The brain is a funny, complicated thing. And especially when the brain has to try to wrap its mind around and comprehend things that don't seem real. I can only imagine what some of these experiencers have gone through. I've had my 2 little experiences and they were very significant to me. So hearing other people explain some of the experiences they have had really kind of pushes my hunger for what the hell is going on. Like, is this some interdimensional species or extraterrestrial species or ultra-terrestrial species that is doing this to people? Or is this technology that people are using against people? Honestly, folks, it is hard to tell. It is hard to tell whether those folks at Bigelow Ranch, now Skinwalker Ranch, it is hard to tell if those folks were observing real phenomena or if that company had equipment installed in those locations to mess with folks' brains and make them think they're seeing things that aren't there. Was that the real study? We don't know. And we're probably not going to know in our lifetime. Maybe in a generation or two. But they got the lid on this. Very tightly sealed. And just when you think you have it figured out, it changes on you. Right? Let's see. Vector Knowledge says Collins Elite has at least some chance of being real given the Christian evangelism some of the U.S. military. Oh, absolutely. As we see in the Iran war. Yeah, by Elizondo, who is wonky to say the least. Yes, very much so. Yes. Oh my God, Louise, is that something that has been really concerning? We've been hearing these generals going around telling soldiers that this is a holy war. I was a soldier. And if you would have told me we were about to go into a holy war, I would be very concerned. That's not what the U.S. does. That's not what we're supposed to do, anyway. Like, wars happen, right? Religious wars happen. Sectarian wars happen. Wars happen over power, resources, and yes, religion. But to call it a holy war, to frame it that way to your troops, That's concerning to me, in my opinion. Let's see. Tracy says it was part of the Ed and Lorraine Warren case, but can't remember which house it was. I think it's the one where the devil made him do it case, where he was released after being convicted. I do remember that case. They did a documentary on Netflix about it that was really interesting, I thought. Okay, now, here's what we're going to get into, and here's what I want to talk about as we work through this interview here, is this study of UFO, UAP, the propulsion studies, the 0-point energy studies, the gravitational, non-gravitational, anti-gravitational, whatever label you want to put on it. Is this secret stuff or is this bullshit? I think it's important that we know, because then we can filter out the bullshit, if that's indeed what it is. So I'm hoping y'all notice how critical Weinstein is of what Eric Davis has to say. He's not attacking him personally, at least he tries not to. And he makes educated arguments and asks common sense questions of a guy, and we're going to get into this, that is very, very heavily tied into everything UFO since the word disclosure became popular. All right, so we're going to start with Eric Davis and Eric Weinstein here, and this was on American Alchemy.
Look, one of the things that I dislike very strongly about the UAP world is that you spend an inordinate amount of time, if you're just trying to be an honest, analytic person, with is there any actual tangible, incontrovertible proof? And it always seems like there's somehow this tight-knit group of people who, in general, themselves don't have direct proof, but sort of have proof one thing away. How is it possible that something this large that involves this many people has zero scientifically incontrovertible pieces of evidence, so that we can actually, there's no way to predicate a discussion in a way that I know that's responsible? It just completely eludes the scientific community.
Yeah, it's because the incontrovertible evidence is kept in the classified realm for security reasons.
Well, but
there you go.
Again, I don't want to.
Do you dispute the existence of atomic weapons?
The Teller-Ulam design is released as a highly redacted report, right? And so I have an idea from plenty of sources that this program exists. And what's more, in the case of...
So that's Davis saying to Weinstein, look, you don't have to have access to everything to know it's real. And Weinstein says, well, I might not have access to the blueprint on how to make a nuke, but they provided enough science and data to prove that it can be done. Oh, and also they've exploded nukes multiple times on camera. So it's a bit of a difference there.
Of atomic weapons, physicists are not perfectly locked down. It's a high trust community, and in general, people are willing to talk, even if they shouldn't, about the role of physics in atomic weapons. I have never heard a colleague, not once, at a high level in physics, give any credence to this world. In other words...
Well, that's because they didn't have access.
Are you and Hal our Manhattan Project?
So I will say, Eric Davis is being blackmailed, and as well as Hal Puthoff's being threatened. I want people to have the knowledge and the truth. I'm trying to be transparent as much as I can with not jeopardizing the people I'm talking to and keeping them safe, what's most important. Because without these people, we don't have anything to stand on, and that's the truth. What I will say with Eric Davis and Hal Puthoff, I know this personally, is that they are legacy program assets. So they will mix truths with lies.
So that was an exclusive Red Panda Koala interview. If y'all don't follow Red Panda Koala on X and you're on X, you're doing it wrong. Don't worry, he's also on YouTube if you don't do the X thing. Find Red Panda Koala. He is genius at breaking these stories early. I mean, this was a while ago. And this was Michael Herrera talking to him about Hal Puthoff and Eric Davis being threatened and blackmailed. And also, by the way, they're part of this legacy program. So everything they tell you, they're mixing truths and half-truths to try to obfuscate and throw you off course. Yeah, exactly, Louise. Hiroshima and Nagasaki were a thing. We saw them. We witnessed them. We witnessed the after effects. Most of us said, never again. That was awful. We haven't witnessed anything with this yet. Just a whole lot of tranches of documents and a whole lot of grainy footage and stories. Let's be real. Listen, I got the I want to believe poster. I want to believe. But I also don't want to be made a fool of. Like the rest of us, right? Okay. Let's get back to these two here. Oh, I hate that. You know, I go to restart it and I hit the wrong button and it starts it all over. And then Gabe's got to go in here and find out where we were. I think we're right about here.
Is released as a highly redacted report, right? And so I have an idea.
Minutes Omar.
At the UAP world is that you spend an inordinate amount of time, if you're just trying to be an honest, analytic person, with is there any actual tangible, incontrovertible proof? And it always seems like there's somehow this tight-knit group of people who, in general, themselves don't have direct proof, but sort of have proof one thing away. How is it possible that something this large that involves this many people has zero scientifically incontrovertible pieces of evidence so that we can actually, there's no way to predicate a discussion in a way that I know that's responsible? It just completely eludes the scientific community.
Yeah, it's because the incontrovertible evidence is kept in the classified realm and for security reasons.
Well, but
there you go.
Again, I don't want to.
Do you dispute the existence of atomic weapons?
The Teller-Ulam design is released as a highly redacted report, right? And so I have an idea from plenty of sources that this program exists. And what's more, in the case of atomic weapons, physicists are not perfectly locked down. It's a high trust community. And in general, people are willing to talk, even if they shouldn't, about the role of physics in atomic weapons. I have never heard a colleague, not once, at a high level in physics, give any credence to this world. In other words,
well, that's because they didn't have access.
Are you and Hal our Manhattan Project?
So I will say, Eric Davis is being blackmailed, and as well as Hal Puthoff's being threatened. I want people to have the knowledge and the truth. I'm trying to be transparent as much as I can with not jeopardizing the people I'm talking to and keeping them safe was most important. Because without these people, we don't have anything to stand on, and that's the truth. What I will say with Eric Davis and Hal Puthoff, I know this personally, is that they are legacy program assets. So they will mix truths with lies. So you got to be careful with what they say and produce.
No, we're not directly involved. We've been exposed to it officially for the purpose of the OSAP's goals. We didn't have theoretical physicists that we could put on this. We're strictly limited in the number of people on the bigot list. The bigot list is the list of people who have need to know and access to a particular classified program. And if you're not on that list, you don't get
bigot
admitted.
list.
You don't get invited.
This is an unacknowledged, waived, and bigoted special access program.
It's a waived, unacknowledged special access program.
Right.
What are your physicists? What are your theoretical and applied physicists telling you? You said, well, we don't have any. We never did. We only were allowed to keep it down to roughly a handful of people in the company to work on this.
No.
And that's it. And it's limited to engineering. And there's no physics in it.
It doesn't make any sense.
Say again?
I'm just trying to logically think about this.
Okay.
And it's like saying we're having trouble performing Beethoven's Fifth, and we have the finest accountants, optometrists, boxers, and cardio trainers. And you're like, well, what about violinists and violists and anybody playing the French horn? And it's like, oh, well, we don't do that.
I fucking love it. Straight up looks at him, dude, that doesn't make any sense. Why would you not have the cream of the crop in physics, the cream of the crop in chemistry, the cream of the crop in electromagnetics? Like, at every single level, why do you not have the very best and brightest working on this? Why do we have guys that look like this and eat salad like a hobbit? This is our legitimate UFO guy? Give me a break. It's just such bullshit. There's just no way. And when he straight up says, like, that makes no sense, you don't have any of the people you would need on this, he shakes his head in agreement. Yep, we don't. Bummer.
So, of course, you're not going to play Beethoven's Fifth. I mean, because you can't engineer your way out of a science problem.
So there's disjointed groups of people, small numbers of people. They're not allowed to know about the other people.
Okay, those are the
people, what they're doing.
Those are the people who are in the stovepiped architecture,
right? And the central, the central portfolio owner is a 3-letter intelligence agency. So that's who's is centrally in charge.
To speak to this 3-letter, the head you cited a 3-letter in our discussion at Seoul in San Francisco. You directly said CIA, DS&T, at one time Glenn Gaffney, et cetera. So was the UFO program portfolio owner. So to Dr. Weinstein's question about technical rigor, physicists, did you ever have the opportunity to ask anybody near the head of this apparatus why there wasn't a stronger motivation to have physicists on staff? I mean, from an early era, why was there not that prioritization?
Well, I would love to talk to the head of the crash retrieval program during that era, but he refused to talk to us.
And that was Glenn Gaffney?
Yeah, Glenn Gaffney.
Glenn Gaffney.
So I'm just going to begin with things that make me...
So that's, once again, his name has consistently come up for at least the last 12 months, Glenn Gaffney. Is very difficult to find a lot on him other than his professional career, which includes stints in DIA, right? Different contracts in aerospace, contracts with DEWs, in particular lasers. So a lot of weird stuff going on with Glenn Gaffney, and the fact that a lot of it is so hard to find almost adds prominence to the fact that this guy may have been involved in something, at least the gatekeeping of something very classified.
Hugely uncomfortable. And again, it's not as a dig, or it's like, I just can't figure this out. So we toss off these humanoid aliens, like aliens that are tetrapods, literally tetrapod body plans. We have arachnids, we have insects, we have cephalopods, we have all sorts of intelligent life that doesn't follow a tetrapod body plan.
Right.
The odd of a humanoid evolving through convergent evolution somewhere else of a humanoid is vanishingly small.
But it's not zero.
Any biologist hearing this story is just going to have the same reaction, like, tetrapods? This sounds like it came out of a Buck Rogers thing where you had to, it was too hard to hire an actor to behave as if they had a completely different body plan. So all aliens from the golden age of cinema or silent movies, whatever, were going to be tetrapods if they were playing an alien. So that, first of all, really bugs me, is that I don't want to hear about that with no mention of, it is stunning that there are two eyes, a mouth, a head, and it walks the same way we do. First of all, I don't understand. If these things are here from out of town, if they're not co-resident with us here on Earth, they're not here using the standard model in general relativity, I don't think. I mean, it's not impossible, but
I'm not doing UFO physics. I'm doing propulsion physics for interstellar flight. I'm not looking at this from a UFO perspective. I'm doing this as part of another.
So maybe you can make
work.
this. So
Warp
you're
drives,
the
wormholes, things like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not doing this because of UFOs. I'm just saying, hey, if this is valid to any degree, and we could expect maybe, or pray maybe, that in the future we can engineer these things, this could be how UFOs move, because we're trying to develop this physics for exploitation as a technology for future interstellar and interstellar missions.
So this is hugely important for me just to understand the context. If I understand it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't want to push anything that isn't true. I think what you're saying is, assume a proof of concept that something can voyage at an interstellar level with intention.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Assuming that one piece of information, attempt to figure out how that could be done as best you can with the tools we have.
Yes.
Okay. So then you and I completely polarize, I think, and again, I could be wrong, on one issue. I would not be wasting my time. And again, that's judgmental. I would feel that I was wasting my time if I was trying to do this with GR, with general relativity. If I had access to anything that seemingly was breaking GR, general relativity, I'd be dreaming about things related to general relativity, because we know that we don't like general relativity at a deep level. It's got a terrible variable in it, which is called the metric, where it's easy to fall into things that are not metrics from the space of metrics. It just doesn't behave well in terms of quantization. We know that we have got these two kinks in space-time called the initial singularity, which we associate with the Big Bang, and the Schwarzschild or black hole singularity that we associate with collapsed stars.
Yeah.
And I don't like GR. It's 110 years past its sell-by date.
I mean, when it comes to trying to figure out, like, so Eric Davis has these things pinned as craft. They are craft. They are not craft that we understand, but they are craft. If we don't understand them, it's because they break the rules that we have. And so trying to explain and reverse engineer, quote, craft that don't obey the rules of general relativity with general relativity is absolutely a waste of time. It's like trying to solve a calculus problem using literature. It's the wrong language. It doesn't work. It doesn't gel. So why are you spinning your wheels trying to make something that won't work? You're just wasting your time. I mean, honestly, it's the nicest thing he could have said, trying to help the man. Like, dude, you are pissing your IQ and your intellectual prowess away on something that is not going to happen.
And why are you not tweaking it?
I don't have intuition on how I could tweak it.
Okay, so
and I would rather somebody smarter than me do that.
there's this 1971 Australian document that I became aware of, where the Australian intelligence officer, Harry, do you remember his last
Harry
name?
Turner, who was head of their nuclear division,
Starts writing down, here's what we surmise about our friends, the Yanks, and their efforts in this area.
Okay.
And he names, I don't know, 6 universities and the Institute for Advanced Study, MIT, Purdue, Indiana. I forget what the complete list is. And he names like Arnowit, Desser,
Oh, yeah.
Dyson, Oppenheimer. And it sounds like the Manhattan Project for gravity.
Okay.
It is insane to spend 42 years under the spell of a group of people you call leaders who've stagnated a field. In general, you have to ask the question, why is no one allowed to say what is going on with David Gross, Lenny Susskind, Edward Witten, Andy Strominger? Why are these people still our leading physicists?
Damn. But sometimes the truth hurts. Since string theory was introduced, physics has gone nowhere. This has been 30, 40 years? 30 years? Literally nowhere. All theoretical. So maybe it's just like the wrong way of doing it? I don't know.
I mean, this program failed. It's not the first failed program. We had a program associated with Reggie called the Reggie Calculus that was supposed to do great things and didn't work. There was a guy named Jeff Chu who had a bootstrap program and the S-matrix thing that didn't work. We've had lots of ideas that don't work, and it's part of the game. And it's not a question of these are bad people, but they failed scientifically. Well, you saw what happened with Eric. Is I sort of had to say, none of these ideas are remotely plausible that you're exploring. It wasn't personal. It wasn't mean. He sort of said, yeah, I know that now. But you can kind of tell at the beginning, none of this is going to work.
Mm.
And so both in string theory and in what he's doing, which is accepting that craft exist and are retrieved and can do miraculous things, and the constraints are he takes for himself, I'm not going to challenge the standard model or general relativity. What's the closest I can get to science fiction from known science fact?
Mm.
And the answer is you're a million miles away, buddy. You're not in the right zip code.
What's interesting is you have a similar thing going on in UFO world as what seemed to go on with Epstein, where you have this bizarre telephone game of terms being, you have like in UFO world, it's like extended electrodynamics and all these like weird frameworks that nobody knows how to define. And then you read those Epstein emails and he's like, boost your physics. He's like, time is actually just a function of the vibration of cesium atoms. And he's infiltrating the math department at Harvard and somehow has a lot of sway with these people and is speaking like a person who was maybe told some real stuff.
Well, this is the thing.
Yeah.
It's very hard to convey because particularly academics and PhDs don't want to be conned like at all costs. My feeling is this is an extremely dumb way to go through life.
So just for a second, they do touch on Epstein because it's that crazy right now, y'all. It is everywhere. They do touch on Epstein, but it's very brief and mostly to say that, well, you'll hear him say it, but essentially Epstein seemed like a financial poser to Weinstein. That's the way I interpreted it.
You're going to be conned for sure try to figure out who's saying something interesting by listening. And in my estimation, Epstein was saying interesting things to me that didn't originate from his mind.
It's like they've hired an actor to play a hedge fund manager. I only met him once. It was probably for about an hour or so. But he was an absolutely terrifying person to encounter. It would be surprising to me if I was alone in that I immediately had the suspicion that I was looking at somebody who had been constructed rather than something that had organically arisen within the financial community.
That's wild, y'all. I mean, essentially insinuating that he was no financial genius. He was taught how to sound like a financial genius, but when you try to deep dive with him, the knowledge wasn't actually there. It was like he was trained to act that way. Gee, who trains people to act in ways that they're not? Again, we're back to potential intelligence with Epstein.
It was like somebody who'd learned a phrase in a foreign language and he was repeating it as best he could. Like, I don't think people really have a clear idea of how crazy that interview he gives to Bannon or the media training he was doing. He gets like 8 things wrong in a row, and people say, well, Eric, you were wrong. He clearly is a much better spoken, much more informed person. So he founded the Santa Fe Institute in 1990 to 93 when it was founded in 1984 by other people.
So bizarre.
Or this was around the time that Murray Gell-Mann was naming quarks from a poem when quarks were named many years earlier.
But he got it a quark. It's a quark.
Says he was a good Wall Street trader because he had calculators. We had Texas Instruments back then.
Okay, so this is what I saw with like Bob Lazar, you know? Eric latched onto the fact that Lazar is lying. Okay, so fine, he's lying. It doesn't mean it's uninteresting.
I love that video that Tupacabra made of Eric Davis making his escape from Orbland. He had giants. He had people with spears running around. He had orbs. It was crazy. But he made it out. Him and his Hawaiian t-shirt and khaki shorts. Oh, we love Tupacabra. If you're not following Tupacabra on X and you're on X, you're doing it wrong. Make sure to go to @Tupacabra and give him a follow, because that guy cranks out some of the most amazing AI videos. So we just had Eric Weinstein pretty much confront Eric Davis and say, dude, either you're full of shit or the type of study that you're doing is flawed. You cannot take, if you believe these are craft that can travel faster than the speed of light, that can bend time and space and all these other crazy things, and you try to make that work within our theory of general relativity, it doesn't. It simply doesn't. No matter how many lines of code or what AI you have working on it, you can't reverse engineer this. You can't reverse engineer it using the theories of general relativity. That's for certain. Which leads us to the UAP conference that Eric Davis had, where he sat there in front of members in Congress, looked Eric Burleson right in the eye, and said, there are insectoids, the tall whites or Palladians or builders, whatever name you want to give them. There are reptilians and there are grays. And so Mr. Weinstein says, you know, as big as a universe that we have, the odds of the species that have visited us being cephalopods, walking on 2 feet, 1 head, 2 eyes, 2 hands, the odds of that happening are like a gabillion to, yeah, I just made up a number, a gabillion to 1. It just wouldn't happen. To refer to that movie Arrival again, if you saw it, right? That would be more like something we might see. Something that's unrecognizable to us and is totally confusing, and we can't even communicate with them. You're not going to meet a fucking reptilian. If you are, as Stephen Greer says, it's probably some weird interdimensional weapon someone is using on you. Eric Davis. We can start with the memo. We know he was responsible for this Wilson Davis memo, and he swears up and down that he had nothing to do with it coming out. I mean, look at the innocence on that face. How could he be lying? But the Wilson Davis memo came out, what, early 90s? And ever since that point, because he has 1 foot in academia and 1 foot in some of these programs like the DIRDS and the BASS program, the OSAP program, he is quoted constantly. He is like the man for people that research UFOs because he tells them everything they want to hear. Let's not forget, Eric Davis, I want to make this bigger for y'all, just so you can see it. The quote, "Off-world vehicles not made of this earth," was from Eric Davis. He worked at Skinwalker Ranch. He invented the term exotic materials, warp bubble, interdimensional hypothesis, consciousness interaction like psionics, warp drives, space-time metric engineering, wormholes, faster than light travel, and vacuum energy. All came from the same brain, Eric Davis. So when you're doing your UFO research, you go, oh my God. We have a report where someone said, off-world vehicles not made on this earth. It was one guy that said that in one report, and it was Eric Davis. Weinstein asks him, fuck, Eric, are you and Hal our new Manhattan Project? No. No way, Jose. That would be crazy to think that we are that. I mean, there's just no way. Hal Puthoff, Jacques Vallée, Robert Bigelow are all tied in with Eric Davis. Dird reports, Bass research, all of it ties in and has a connection and bridges to Eric Davis. A plethora of the claims that David Grush made on the House floor were because, you guessed it, of Eric Davis and Hal Puthoff. And the same suspects every time. McGonigal, Davis, Puthoff, Elizondo, Knapp. It's all the same. It's either one big psyop to keep us away from the fact that Space Force can now control apparently electromagnetic fields above cities. I mean, when you start researching what Space Force is doing during this war with Iran, at least what they will admit to doing, it's quite terrifying. And yes, a couple of things Tracy pointed out, I want to make sure we called out. Yes, it's freaky watching Eric say about when he met Jeffrey Epstein, as it's close to how RFK Jr. described Jeffrey Epstein when he did the trip organized by his first wife, ended with a whoops. Yes, and Clinton, in his testimony, said something similar. Like, at first, Epstein seemed really interested. But then as other meetings progressed, it seemed more like he was just checking it off the box. Like, yep, met with Clinton at this time, this day, but he really didn't have much interest in what he had to say. And it is strange. It's strange that he missed out on the Giants, especially when there's actually evidence, even footprints. Yeah, the Giant thing is nuts, right? We don't hear enough about the Giants. And I'll tell you why. Because once again, these asshole grifters take advantage and they derail the story for clicks. Right? Like, that's what it's all about. I'm not going to do that shit. That's why you see my videos are like 2-3 hours, sometimes 4 hours. Like, I get people telling me all the time, oh, you got to clip it down and snip it up and, you know, add some razzmatazz and flashes and this and that and the other. And nah, people are smarter than that. I think people are getting tired of the clickbait and they want real conversation and thoughtful research. So I hope I give a little bit of that to you all. So that's about all I had for the UFO updates. Again, I think in summary, what I would like to say and what I would like to leave you with is that 2027 is going to be the same thing they told you 2012 was going to be. Just another year. It's just going to be another year. 2036, same thing. Yep. You're going to wake up, you're going to go to work, you're going to pay your taxes, you're going to handle your business, do what you got to do. That's what's going to happen. And all these people, just like the people that made 45 2012 End of the World films between 2000 and 2012, they're going to make money off of scaring everyone. That's what they do. That's what the news is. Don't make me pull up the old Marilyn Manson interview. I will do it. And he will explain to you what the news is. Marilyn Manson from the 90s had it figured out. All right. I want to thank y'all for hanging out with me. I want to apologize for the late starts and the issues. I am going to burn some sage in the office, and this house will be clear for our next broadcast tomorrow night. Should everything work out, going to have a really fun episode with Flak Magnet. We're looking into Epstein in Russia, and we're looking into Epstein and a little surprise twist for you. So hope to see y'all tomorrow night for the Epstein video. I'll get that posted up here soon as far as the start time goes. Probably be the regular time, 9:05 p.m. Pacific Standard, unless we get kind of a wild hair. But yeah, we will see you then. Thank you for hanging out with this week's UFO news updates, and I'll see you next time on Gabriel Speaks Podcast. Oh, yep, like, subscribe, and all that stuff. I'd really appreciate it. I'll see you next time.